agenda?
No, Mr. Chair. We have a relatively brief agenda tonight. We have minutes on the consent agenda, and then we have one business item related to direction on lease rates for 421 and 431 Main Street.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second by Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Consent.
We just have the one item.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Talk about it first.
Well, was there anything to talk about? Do you want to continue with telling us that they're the minutes?
Oh, I'm in a new business. All right, I'm catching up. No public hearings, new business.
So the only item we have under new business tonight is seeking direction from the commission regarding lease rates for 421, 431. Council, or excuse me, the commission will recall that we had acquired those properties for ultimate redevelopment in the future. But those properties came with tenants, which is good because they pay rent to offset the cost for acquiring the properties, but it also means that we have to administer them. Currently, we're working with the existing leases that were in place with the previous, that were put in place by the previous owner. And as was discussed at the time, we need to have a discussion about whether or not we want to make changes before we draft up our own lease documents. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Renee to give the presentation.
I don't really have a presentation, but I'm just gonna share a slide that has some, basically the city's costs versus rents that are being paid or could be paid. Okay. Again, to add on to Tom's introduction, both homes were being leased by the previous owner for $800 a month. The home on the west, which is 421 Main Street, is a 3-bedroom home. The tenant has lived there for 25 years. He's 75 years old, veteran, and has an income of $65,000. 431 Main Street is the one on the east. That's a 2-bedroom home. There's 2 tenants that occupy the home. They have lived there for 20 years, and ages 62 and 55 with a gross annual income of $125,000. Now, in our, as you recall, the city borrowed the money from the Scott County Community Development Agency for the properties, and we have a loan agreement with them in place. It's recorded as a mortgage against properties, and in our agreement with them, we've agreed to lease them at affordable rates, although the city has a large discretion in how we determine affordability. In consulting with the CDA, they have given a couple of recommendations of how they sometimes calculate affordability, one being based on income and one being based on using HUD guidelines. So what we've done here, I guess, is just taken those 2 recommendations from the CDA, and we don't have to use either of these. We could simply choose something in the middle, but I've used that in the memo for your consideration. So the first one is using the HUD maximum rents, and based on just the number of bedrooms and the income levels of the 2 tenants, they're showing, actually I'm going to step up. So I think it's important to note again that the city did acquire the properties through a loan, and we are making monthly payments to the CDA to over this 15-year term. In addition, we pay taxes on the property. They're not tax exempt because we do receive income from the properties, and we pay insurance on the property. So those are 3 costs associated with the properties. So 421 Main Street, here you can see our monthly cost is about $1,737 per month. And then 431 Main Street, $1,716 per month. We do not do any maintenance on the properties. We have not gotten a single phone call related to maintenance. That's part of their old lease agreement. In fact, even if their appliances break down, they're responsible for replacing them. I think one of the tenants owns their appliances already today. I think the furnace and major components, furnace, water heater, stuff like that would possibly fall back on the city. The lease agreement is extremely limited. It's very bare bones. We'll ask Andrea to help us draft a new lease agreement based on your directions. So knowing that our monthly costs are as shown there in the top of the table. Then moving down into the tables below, again, the monthly costs are carried down, the city's current rent of $800 per month, and then looking at the two affordable rents, pretty significantly different. The 421 Main Street with the single 75-year-old person, the Scott County CDA is saying, are based on HUD, the published HUD maximum rents based on the three-bedroom home could go up to as high as $2,200 a month. And then that was the three-bedroom home, and the two-bedroom home at $1,685. Now, if we look down to using their income, affordable is when a person spends no more than 30% of their income on household-related expenses. So in your memorandum, if all the household-related expenses were considered rent, we could jump the rents up to $1,625 and $3,125. Now that, in that table in your memorandum, I didn't account for any other household-related expenses such as water and sewer, gas, and electricity. I personally would, make a round estimate that those will probably be about $300 a month. I haven't conferred with the tenants on that, and if you're interested in using something along this lines, we can confer with them to narrow that down. We do know the water bill is about $95 per month. So
long and short, the difference between the two methodologies is one is market-based, affordability based on market, based on the nature of the house, the nature of the structure of the housing itself, and the other one is income-based, based on the specifics of each household. And those are ceilings of reasonable definitions of affordability.
yeah. So we were really just looking for direction from you on a starting point or where you want to take this. We don't have an opinion or a recommendation related to it. The overall goal was to allow the city redevelopment opportunity and
Do you have to do both homes as HUD? Oh, sorry. Do you have to do both homes as HUD or both homes as 30% income?
that's
You could do one and one the other?
It's my opinion that it's your decision. I think there's some rationale that you would maybe be consistent between, in the methodology that you use.
We have to explain it.
We have to explain it I'll have to meet with the tenants and explain to them.
Did I hear right? We don't have a lease with them? It's just kind of a passed-on lease?
Correct.
The current lease that we inherited was a month by month, and so that's just been rolling forward. We inherited it when we purchased the properties.
All right, there's step one right there. We need to have our own lease.
Yeah, and so we're getting this direction to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Would y'all agree? Start with a lease?
Well, yeah.
We gotta decide, what we're charging. That's what's part of this.
So maybe a starting point on the lease amount, if they're just for.
Well, just a lease as a tenant, not, obviously we'll talk about costs, but we don't have our own lease.
We'll draft, once we
We'll
have this
draft.
direction, we'll draft it, and then it will need to come, we'll have to come back to you guys ultimately for approval, so. It seems that if you're to start a discussion, it's kind of a question of orders of magnitude. Yeah. The one option is you leave it the same. Two, you methodology, which it is, and then are you looking to maximize it, or is it something in between? And then another question is there an inflationary adjustment within the term of the lease related to the price? So is it a flat forever, or do you increase it? In Renee's discussions with the CDA, they indicated that they will often use a 5% per year increase on certain properties. And so I think we could start with a higher level direction, and then maybe find where there is majority or consensus, and then work into some of the detail of it.
I mean, I'm not interested in raising it all that much, at this point. I mean, I could probably talk about some sort of cost of living increase or inflationary increase or something like that, but, I mean, we go up anything, even if we were to get to the 30% income of the low end or the low end of the HUD max, I mean, you're still doubling somebody's rent, and I'm not gonna be in favor of that at all. I mean, and I would say too, I tried to take out the individual data or information and look at it of what would these properties be regardless, so,
If these properties, I think it's reasonable to assume that we got them at and maybe even slightly below market. They would have been purchased by an investor who would have flipped them, and they would have needed to do it, and they would have moved it to whatever rent would cover the similar cost of what we have plus profit.
yeah, no, I mean, and if there's nobody living in them, it's a different discussion. There's
Right.
people living in them, so therefore, I mean, I would favor keeping it pretty dang close to the exact same with some inflationary increase, and then when the tenants turn over, if the tenants turn over, then we have a discussion of bringing them more closer to a market rate or whatever makes sense, but.
I would have to agree with you, Josh. I am not in favor of doubling or even, I mean, that 2,200 for that 421 Main, that's a big chunk of their income. So for the year, that scares me. Even the I'm not in favor of doubling it. I don't mind doing the inflationary increase. And when, like you said, when you vacate it, then we look at changing the price if we're going to keep it a rental at that point. But I have a hard time going even to the 1,600 or even the 1,300. I have a hard time jumping from 800 to 1,300.
I want to be clear,
Can
there is
it-
no staff
we don't have to
recommendation on
pick
that.
We don't
I
do
know.
it, yeah.
These are just what we would consider to be ceilings, depending on what affordability.
No, it helps to frame it
Yeah,
up, for sure.
yeah, but
Like the city monthly expenses on the properties. Like it would be ideal to
Break even.
gradually make our way up there, but I also have no desire to up and double people's rent that haven't had a rent increase in a long time.
When we purchased these, did we contemplate this? I mean, did we know, I mean, I can't remember the
We
discussion.
knew we were gonna
But-
lose money.
Yeah, and we were
monthly
okay
on
with
it.
that.
We
I
knew
mean,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
or I guess I won't speak for anybody else, but.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a decision on what the lease amount was, but we knew when it was purchased that it would need to be maintained at an affordable rate, and that was a discussion to be held at a later date. The upside is when we acquired the properties, we paid more because they were rent-paying properties, so they bear more in the market, but the upside is there was long-time solid tenants. They have been good tenants for us, through the process, so there's value in that. But you guys knew it was discussed that
I
this
remember
discussion
that.
would have to occur.
I remember it.
right. And they have not contacted you. They're not asking you to upkeep anything. I think
They're great.
I
So far
think
they've
that
been great
portion
tenants
is
for us.
huge.
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah.
What was the cost per year? Did I hear 5% come out?
That was a recommendation that the Scott County CDA said that they use in some of their leases.
I don't remember a COLA going 5%. I'd be like 2%, 2.5% is kind of where my number would be, because COLA isn't 5% really. Or is it?
Bob wants to talk. He keeps
Bob,
going.
He's all about the Roberts rules and stuff, we're just.
No, I know. It does seem to me that we had discussion on this before, and when the purchase was made, that the seller was interested in having these people be able to continue to live there
Yes.
Very much.
because they had a relationship going, which kind of set the price a little bit more affordable. The other thing is that eventually, I would assume the city has a use for it or wouldn't have been buying it. And if you did go to some type of taking, it's going to be considerably more expensive. So I wouldn't expect that we should have to have these people pay for the property from the standpoint that if it was necessary to have it in the city, it was gonna cost a lot more later if indeed you had to go through a condemnation or something.
Well, to be fair on that, Bob, we wouldn't, because if it was an economic development, you can't legally do a condemnation for it.
So this was economic development more than right-of-way or whatever.
It was.
Absolutely.
Okay,
It
I'm
was,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, yes, misunderstood.
But the point, but you are correct. It was made clear through our informal discussions and purchase that we were approached as the city because we were not gonna do what we discussed would happen if a private investor bought it. They were more confident that we would do it. And the family, who could have quickly turned it, was very patient, if you recall, with us going through the process. So they were accommodating with the specific intent that the city acquire it. And I believe there's two purposes. One was for that they wanted to provide an opportunity for their tenants to be able to likely have a more affordable option, because that might not have been the case if it would not have been the case if it was purchased by a private investor. And two, I think there's a certain amount of altruism for the community, that they know if the city acquired those properties, it would be to the benefit of the city as a whole, and they wouldn't the likelihood they would turn into, pardon my French, crap properties over time would be much less, and that would probably just kill them to see that happen, so. And I think that was reflected in the fact that we got a very fair offer on the property as well. We felt it was very reasonable within the market, the price that they asked for the property.
So just in round numbers, my sense would be that we're covering at least the interest cost and the loss of property tax on this that we would have, maybe not reducing the principal having what they're, but at least covering the city's cost of, which are really the interest and the lost taxes from the standpoint that they're maintaining them. So, because I always look for justification, because I think we do have to watch ourselves that it's nice to be benevolent, but by the same token, it's taxpayer money. But I think we can make the case easily that the cost of carrying this is really the interest and the foregone taxes, which probably are in the vicinity of what we're talking about, just ballparking it.
Renee's pulling, I'm reading your mind, she's pulling up the amortization table right now.
I'm trying,
Sorry.
yeah, the interest payment is, roughly $700 a month, between $700 and $800.
And what's our insurance?
Insurance is
50,
55.75.
55.
So $800 to $900 a month is would be our cost for the items that Bob's identified.
Which is a way of saying I'm fine with it too, I'm not. I do think it.
Towards that even, I mean, if we did wanna close that gap a little bit, if it's under slightly, I mean, then it would be reasonable.
And I guess I would suggest that we have small incremental increases just because we should.
Yeah.
And I think the tenants should be used to that, because everybody else would be
Right.
kind of in the same boat. But we're still then adhering to the reason we got this for somewhat of a reduced price, because the previous owner was trusting us to treat it as they wished, and that's why they gave it to us less expensively than we probably would have had to, or certainly would have to if we went out later. So, thank you.
So if we go up the 5%, you're talking $40.
Correct. And so if you did even like a 3%, within a few years, you would make up the difference and then also be able to keep up with, let's say, your increases in insurance and some of
So-
those other items.
Do we not think that they would be okay with a $40 increase?
We don't know for
I-
sure.
One of the tenants, and I'm kind of going through a little bit of telephone from the real estate agent. I think one of the tenants wouldn't have a concern about it. One may.
Well, and I guess I get back to I'm trying to depersonalize this as much as I can too. So not thinking about the details of who's living there and or personality wise or whatever. I mean, So can we justify whatever this rent should be, at least now? And then again, I think it's a completely different discussion if they decide to move out or whatever, then we have full freedom to
Yeah.
make some changes.
It's also important to note that if the increase is too much, and it's not well-defined when we met with our, the right-of-way, or the relocation benefits company, we hired a relocation benefits company to help us understand and meet with the tenants on this. If we increased it too much to a point of displacing them, we would be responsible for relocation benefits, which could be substantial.
That's right.
I don't think the increments that you're talking about would even come close to that,
No,
though.
but if it was, something that was shown on the table, like doubling their rent, that could
Yes.
trigger that.
And do you have any recommendation on when to start this? Is this typically at the end of a calendar year kind of thing? Or and obviously, moving forward, it can be, if we say it's effective May 1st or June 1st or whatever, it'll be that June, we can,
Our anticipated process is that after, it's a month to month that they have now. They know this is coming at some point, and quite honestly, they're probably going, we haven't heard anything, why haven't we heard anything? So
quiet, don't say anything.
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is,
so I think after we get direction from you, we would draft a lease, we would meet with the tenants, go over it with them. One of the things that we would point out, because they may not realize it themselves, that if it wasn't the city, because a new buyer is not obligated as we are to have a limit on how much the rent increases, that this is realistically, you'd be paying at least this much. So your rent is being subsidized. Also explain that they had the benefit of having that rent because those properties were probably bought and paid for a long time ago, and so the previous owner could afford to do that in a way that any new buyer, except for us, would not be able to do that. And I think we would explain this is what the EDA has directed, and based on the discussion I'm here, I think it's a very objectively easy case to lay out that this is still a hell of a sweet deal for you. I think the question, what I'm hearing, and I'm just to move the discussion, it sounds like there seems to be support for starting with the rent that they're currently paying, but there's some discussion about whether or not there would be like some sort of an inflationary adjustment going forward and what that should be. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
I think so.
yep.
So, 5% is $40. We know if we go with the logic that Bob laid out, we're maybe $100 below what those non-principal carrying costs would be on an annual basis, not including, hey, we have to replace a roof, we have to redo the windows, or we have to replace the furnace or something like that. But the roofs are in reasonably good condition. The major HVAC and plumbing items were reasonably in decent condition and newish. So that's not likely to happen in lieu of a catastrophic incident. And unlike another investor who has a pot of money and he has to have sitting capital, if something breaks, we could go and replace it and then decide about future rent adjustments. What about term? So if we were to do an inflationary adjustment, undecided yet, is it every year going forward? Is it for X number of years? Is there a certain time we want to set the leases through here that gives us the ability to revisit the terms at some point in the future? Any feedback on that?
Aren't most leases a year?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's a
think
year.
you do it for a year.
at least
you're
for
being-
sure to review,
Yeah.
is set that.
So we could set it
schedule.
at a year and then it renews month by
Month to month.
month to month until we,
That's typical. I mean, a lot of times.
So just a new lease every year.
New lease every year.
Well, I'd like to, I personally, just because, I'd like it to revert to a month to month with, just so we're covered.
but that every year on X
It's like a
date,
review
it
of-
increases by
In
X
case it
amount.
gets missed by staff turnover or something that,
So it runs for a year and then it goes month to month until we review it?
No,
And then it
it's-
goes back
we-
to year?
we review it every year, but in the event it doesn't get reviewed, it's still,
It allows it to
Keep it a
float.
month to month, but we
Oh, keep
review
it
it
a month to
annually.
month.
So we could put a new one in, or,
So typically, you do a one-year lease, and the automatic language is if it's not renewed, you'd continue on a month-to-month basis. Unless the city decides we're gonna renew that lease for another year. with whatever terms you decide. So that would be pretty standard.
Okay.
The month also gives them the flexibility that they can be done in a month as well.
Well, I
So,
would assume the lease would have some out terms anyway to like, I mean, if they sign the 1-year lease, let's say in 60 days, they win
Somebody
the
gets
lottery
sick.
and want to move out, they can provide a whatever day notice of terming their lease.
We could certainly include that they would have the right to vacate prior to that 1-year term.
With a proper notice and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
For health considerations, because
Yeah.
they are older. That's always a factor.
And before, I mean, I would say too, I mean, by the time we work through this process, there will be probably notice, but to build in some notice too. I mean, $40 may not sound like a lot, but for someone on a fixed income, blah, 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 I mean, again, we know what their income is, but I'm trying to like think into the future too.
well, what I would suggest is that we're already this far into the year, that any percentage increase would potentially, effective January 1st of
Sure.
next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, like the January
Mhm.
1st. So it's the same all year for reporting CRPs.
So I'm seeing a lot of positive body language with the concepts that are being discussed.
Okay.
What annual rate adjustment would you, or lease adjustment on the rent would you want to do?
Well, is it something that we have to set, or is it something at that review time we review, because I mean, things could have gone sideways in the market and in the economy, and then we leave it open? Or is it to set it at this with the possibility of raising it or lowering it, in case? I guess I don't know what the recommendation.
I think for the first one, you have to set something so they know what they're
Sure.
up against starting in January.
I agree with
So
Kate.
like X percentage, but then have the caveat of if there's like drastic market
Well,
changes or
And
something
again,
like
once
that.
it's month to month, we can bring in a new lease at any time, but it also provides a certain set it and forget it element to
But I
it.
think we're doing a year lease, and then once that year is up, then it becomes month to month.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I believe we can also structure it that we also say annually, it increases by 3%. So we could leave it at month to month perpetually if we wanted to set it and forget it. The month to month allows us to come back and change the overall terms of the lease if we wanted to do so. For something major like Josh was talking about.
Cause like 5% of 800 is obviously not a huge increase, but as their rent increase, 5% obviously
5%, yeah.
becomes,
Compounds.
More, yep.
I would just add, being the lone probably renter in the room, is that I'd be pretty happy with 5%. Like, it goes up a couple hundred for me, a year, 100 or 2 a year for me.
Wow.
Easy.
Especially these last few years, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's been rough. 5% it doesn't sound like a lot to me
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Can we say something like up to 5%, so then like if we decide, you can't do that?
No, it has to
It
be
has to be
definitive.
definitive.
5% it is.
I just don't like boxing this in.
Yeah, we,
I mean,
yeah.
because if we want it to be 10% 1 year because
Well,
of whatever.
But once we're
otherwise-
month to month,
Right.
we
Then you
can
can
come
adjust
back
it.
and bring a lease back.
I mean, if we have a horrible year and we know in 2027, we're gonna have to replace the furnace and the roof or whatever, right? Then maybe, or 2028, say 2028, we know we're gonna have to do that, then maybe we're gonna have to up it a little bit more to help offset the cost of the new furnace. I don't know.
well,
But,
the lease terms could also put some sort of onus on the
right,
renter as well, if we wanted to do that. Like, I don't necessarily wanna say, you're
You have to-
responsible for replacing your furnace, cause that's a giant
that's a huge
cost,
Reason-
but like,
Reasonably, from what we understand, it's worked, is they've taken care of all normal type of maintenance. They paint the walls, they do all the minor repairs. I agree with Renee that we would be responsible for major, systems repair, structural, roof, that type of stuff. They,
Rationale for that is that they're a 1 year or month to month, they're not going to get the benefit of that brand-new HVAC system or furnace. So it's really almost always the landlord that pays for those.
So you said earlier, Renee, you know one of the homes would be okay with the $40 a month. You don't know about the other home.
Yeah. And it was only a comment from the real estate agent who had been dealing with the tenants.
and again, to go to Josh's point, taking the personalities out of it, and again, I'm not advocating for it, but what you are discussing in, by any objective standard, is a very generous lease situation.
Well, and I think we have to, like, Bob, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I just.
You go ahead. Please go.
Sorry. Just a clarification, so we're looking at, the rent continues the same until December 31st of this year.
Correct.
And then at some point, there'd be an escalator next year at some percentage.
Yep.
Well, to move it, I'll make a motion that we go the same until December 31st, and then would have a 4% increase January 1st on a month-to-month, knowing that if indeed it had to be adjusted, it could. But I tend to agree that it's a pretty decent rental amount, and to find those facilities for anything less would be really difficult. And I think we're still honoring the intent of the seller in giving them a really good deal, because this is probably no worse than half price of what would be. So, and I think it's also them recognizing the fairness of this and that they're being treated well, because sometimes if you're too good about things, people don't recognize the value that they're getting, that they're taking care of it. But I also think that it's important that they appreciate that the city is being pretty decent with the rent.
So you wanna do 4%, not 5%?
But keep them at 800 through.
I'm writing this down as we're going, so I'm
You know, I
trying
was
to get
gathering
his
that the
motion.
conversation was going between 3% and 5%, so split it at 4%.
Or,
And quite honestly, as far as the city is concerned, it's so immaterial that it really doesn't matter. So it seems fair to them, and maybe.
So what I heard was you made a motion to leave the rent at $800 a month.
Until
On December 31st, add 4% annually or revisit. Is that correct?
Well, it'd be 4% in lease
For one year?
for 1 year.
Okay.
Would you want to put in an annual escalator in case the month-to-month goes past the end of that second year?
Well, my assumption from the motion then would be that on the January rent would go up by 4%. So if it was $800,
Yep.
it would be $832 for
But for
January.
future annuals, then after that.
Still writing it down. That's fine.
Right.
Still writing this down, so.
Well, I was
It's hard unless you're doing a lease of multiple terms.
It's 1 year lease, so then.
Might as well just do a 1 year, say a 5-year lease, and it will increase by X percentage each year.
Well-
And they have the ability to terminate at any time.
That
But
would be
that
the
doesn't give you
cleaner
the
way to do
ability to
it.
terminate. And I think Renee
Yeah,
would like
I
the
mean,
ability.
if you're gonna, I think if you are going to say, but every year it's gonna go up, that's more than just a 1 year lease.
Right.
You can't, I don't think you can do that. I think you have to keep it at a 1 year lease, 4%, and then we revisit, and if we keep it at the 4% for 2028, we keep it at 4%.
So just know then that we would need to come back to this body on an annual basis for this discussion.
So, or like to Andrea's point, if we did a 5-year lease with a 4%,
But then that doesn't allow us to get
Annual.
out of the lease if we had to for any reason.
Well, you could put a
well, we
caveat
would
in there.
still be able
We
to.
could put
Fair
out
Still put
termination.
something in there that we can get
Something in
out.
there.
Oh, yeah.
We could let them get out, and then,
You just say that either, I mean, I'm assuming unless there's something in statute that you can say either party may terminate this lease with X amount of notice.
Sure, if you want to do it that way.
That way it's firm, we can set it, it's clear what the rent would be to them in the future, so they can plan for it. Anything that we would do with the property isn't gonna be like, oh, it's happening in the next 60 days.
Yeah, so you can see on the spreadsheet the increases
There
here.
goes your motion.
Yeah, there's still a motion on the floor here.
Well, and the reason I thought we were talking about a 1 year,
No, I agree.
Now we're at a 5-year?
now we're talking about a 5-year.
Am I keeping up? And we're at
So
5-year
Bob
now?
could withdraw his motion and restate the
I could just be
reissue motion.
quiet too. I don't have strong feelings.
So now we're at a 5-year lease,
I,
correct?
I don't think we've discussed it yet.
I mean, is there appetite for that? Does that make sense to people, or do we wanna revisit this?
And
on
do
an
they wanna
annual
sign a
basis?
5-year
I'd rather
lease?
revisit it every year.
I would too.
I would rather revisit every year.
Bob's motion stands.
Well, here's what I got right now. So a motion to leave the rent at $800 a month, and on December 31st, add 4% annually, with an annual escalator of 4%.
But would,
Is
but,
that-
No, it'd just be 4%,
One
and then it would go
time, so
month
it's
to
a
month.
one-year lease.
and again, just looking at this, I mean, at a certain point, we start to tip. So now, I mean, again, that's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but as they keep paying more, we keep paying more of the principal off, and so the interest continues to go down on our payment schedule. So like, there may be a time where we don't wanna increase or don't need to increase, because are already making more, or at least covering some of the principal then at a certain point. And I don't know how long that'll be, but, I mean,
That's why it's good to look at it every year.
I think it's good to revisit it more often.
I think it's good to just do a one-year lease. So I will second the motion for Bob.
I'm not clear what the motion is.
Okay,
This is
so
what staff understands it to be. Bob,
That's
correct
why
me.
I'm writing
It's-
this down.
motion would be that the rent will be $800 per month
Per month.
until 12/31/26.
Correct?
Starting January 1st of 2027, rent would go up by 4%.
Yes.
Yep.
And then be month to month.
And then month to month.
And, well, either
Well,
that
no,
or we're
it'd be
signing a
one
year
year
and a
lease.
half.
Through the end of,
One
through the
year
end of
lease.
twenty-seven.
Month-to-month thing keeps confusing me.
Yeah,
So
don't-
we are one-year lease through 2027. I interrupted you again, sorry.
No, that's
Carry
okay.
on.
So
So we would review it again prior to January of 2028. We'd redo it.
Yes.
Well, but that's more than a year.
It was a year and a half, yeah.
So we're doing a year and a half lease?
Well, so what happens if we don't get to it and it gets forgotten? They don't have a lease?
Yeah.
Then they
That's-
would be, you
Month
put in the
to
lease that
month.
they would be month
Month
to
to
month
month,
after
yes.
the 1-year
Correct.
term.
With no escalator?
Until we put a
With
new
no
lease in
escalator.
place.
Okay.
Guess if we
Zero.
don't do our
Okay.
job, then
Right.
they
Yes.
win.
They benefit if we
Shame on
don't.
us
Hold
if we
ourselves
don't.
accountable. It's
Yeah,
their-
we
to their
have to
benefit.
put our calendar on in November that we have to revisit this lease so that it's ready to go by January. For 2028.
So in stating it this way, the lease would then terminate 12/31/27.
Yes.
Yes,
So we're actually giving them a year and a half lease.
correct.
Yeah.
So it's 800 until 12/31/26. It goes up 4%, terminates on, or it
12/31
it ends on
26.
12/31/27, and then
Month to month.
you might, you word it month to month after that.
Yep.
And maybe we don't even have to do them month to month because we've got our ducks in a row and we're ready to present them with another one before.
That would be the ideal.
Right.
And
Right.
then,
Or they've moved out.
Or they've moved out,
they,
and then-
Right.
you know,
We have a motion and a second, but I'm still not clear.
All those in
I got it.
What are
I
your
got- we got it.
questions?
What
We
are
got
your,
it.
what are your questions?
So it's 18 months,
Dinner
at
to get
800,
to.
well, it'll be,
4%.
No,
we have
no.
to use dates because it'll depend on when we get this ready to go. So it'll
So
be,
Yeah, someone's got to figure this out.
It'll be
$800 till end of 2026.
Okay.
January 1, 2027, it will go to $832. That's all you need to know. For a year, till 2020, and 12/31/2027, where we
Lease
do a new
expires.
lease with them.
Everybody's clear on this?
Yep.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I was gonna vote no, just to be, whatever.
So I would just say
Is that what
that
we need?
every October, because we only have 4 regular EDA meetings every year, October being the last one of every year is probably,
Well, I just shot out a date.
no, I know that,
But,
but,
I
so
mean,
I
bring
think,
it to us in the summer, then we know that it's ready to, the package is ready to go, gives Andrea time to draft it, blah, blah, blah.
but Brandon will put it on his calendar as a repeat.
every October, we'll have this discussion every October 23rd, like whatever it is.
You'll make it earlier than
It
that.
has
You
to
want
be
to do one
earlier,
earlier than that?
Yep.
because you'd have to approve the lease at the
Release in
October meeting.
October.
So
Yeah,
the
there you
second, so the second to last meeting, we talk about it, the last meeting in October, we approve it.
And then
Yes.
that'll give time for whatever's in the lease as far as notice goes of rent increases, that kind of thing, because we'll want to give them notice of what it'll be that next January.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have a rental license in the city, right?
No.
So we don't have to worry about that.
I was like,
You voted that down.
I was gonna say, we voted that down.
First and seconds on that.
Did I hear
We
you
did bring it
recommend
up
that we
too.
should do that?
I did not.
I thought I heard
But we'll
that.
be able to test it out on us since we, and we can see what we like or don't like about a rental license.
All right, that concludes new business. Any continued business? Talk about, no? Report.
I have nothing. Oh, I missed, maybe a quick upcoming, what's upcoming, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. So our next meeting that we will have will be at the end of April.
Yep.
And at that meeting, we will have our industrial, commercial, non-retail commercial panel. That will be an hour and a half meeting. We'll be asking the council to move back the council meeting that night to 7:30 start time. Then for May, we're working on our retail commercial panel. And then as we get into June, July, we would be looking at our housing panels. So that's our lineup for the next several meetings.
Will they all be an hour and a half, or is it just the first one is an hour and a half long?
They
meeting?
will it depends on the size of the panel, and we'll also see how chatty you guys are at the end of those panels, but we would tentatively plan for an hour and a half.
Do you need a motion or anything to, okay,
Now, when we get to council, we'll need approval to change the meeting time for the council meeting.
perfect.
Good, all right. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.